It's the Heffron and Reep Bonus Show.
Oh, so rich!
This is the place where the guys upload bonus shows while they're on the road. Sometimes it's just John. Other times it's John and John.
Huh?
Either way, it's all good.
Well, his friends would say, stop whining. They've had enough of that. His friends would say, stop pining. There's other girls to look at. Well, they've tried to set him up with Tiffany and Indigo. But there's something about Mary that they don't know. Mary. There's just something about Mary.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Heffron and Reep Show, or I should say bonus show. I'm John Reep, and I'm excited to bring you this episode because I sit down with a good buddy of mine named W. Earl Brown. And you're probably thinking to yourself, who is W. Earl Brown? Well, you know him if you've seen the movie There's Something About Mary, because he played the mentally challenged brother in There's Something About Mary. You remember that guy. Beans and Franks, Franks and Beans. Well, that's right. He's not a real retarded person. He's a great actor, and his name is Earl. And he's been in tons of TV shows and movies. Something About Mary, Deadwood, Vanilla Sky, 6 Feet Under, all the CSIs, NYPD Blues, you know, Justified, American Horror Story. There's that movie The Master that's out now, and he's going to be in the upcoming Lone Ranger movie. I sit down, I go to his house, I sit down in his man cave slash garage slash museum, and we sit down and we just talk about, you know, he's from Kentucky, so two good old boys sitting here and talking about, you know, how to make it as an actor in Hollywood, being from the South, and Jerry Clower, 50 Shades of HEY, and Earl teaches me acting 101 for the mentally challenged. So sit back and enjoy. I apologize again for the low quality audio, but don't worry, you can hear everything we say, all the good stuff. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode of the Heffron and Reep Show. Sitting here with the man, W. Earl Brown. Thanks for doing the podcast, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Just call me Earl.
Well, I was going to ask you, why the W anyway? Is that something that did he always... is that your middle name? Is Earl your middle name?
Earl's my middle name. Okay, William Earl Brown. My daddy was William Eddie Brown. My grandfather was Edgar Washington Brown. So EW or any combination of is a family thing.
EWs.
I was always called Earl, which was always a pain in the ass, you know, when in school. And I got in the habit in college of signing, because I was in these college classes with like 200 kids.
Right.
And so I got in the habit of signing in W. Earl Brown, just because they would hopefully put together W as William. So when I joined the union, you can't have this. Well, you know that you can't have the same name. Yeah, Screen Actors Guild. You can't have the same name as another actor.
Right. Is there another Earl Brown out there?
There is an Earl Brown. There is a William Brown.
Oh my God!
And I was on. I had to join because I Taft-Hartley, which means you can. You know, the first job I worked on, you don't have to join the union.
Right. Right.
You can save the money, and so the second job, I get this job, the Babe, the baseball picture of Babe Ruth. Like I had to go to work.
Yeah.
I had to be at work Monday afternoon. Well, you have to take care of your paperwork. So I had to go to the SAG office Monday morning in Chicago. I'm sorry, you can't be Earl Brown. William Brown?
No.
I'm sorry, you can't be William Brown.
Right.
W. Earl Brown. Okay.
There it is.
So that's how I became W. Earl Brown.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was sort of like an actor type thing. A lot of actors do the three names or the initial.
But that's usually
why.
Almost always why.
Screen Actors
Guild. Not because of any kind of pretense. Like W. Earl Brown.
I want to be Jonathan D. Reep. Yes. Well, my name is weird. Like I thought about, like, should I just be John Reep? Or should I be Jonathan? Because my full name's Jonathan, you know. Yeah. But, so I see it because of the Screen Actors Guild. I was Taft-Hartley, too. So for those who don't know, Taft-Hartley means, like, you're not in the Screen Actors Guild, and when you do a union gig, you have to be a member of the Screen Actors Guild.
It's that way with any union. I mean, you can go to work at a union shop, you know, like working in manufacturing, and you have, I think it's 60 days or 90, whatever that period is, that you can still work within the shop without joining the union.
Right.
But once you get past that time span, I think it's 60, you're on a must join.
Right.
So it's the same with any union.
Okay.
It's not just Screen Actors, it's any.
Taft-Hartley, was that named after the actor that first happened with or something like that? Do you know?
You know what? I'm not sure. I know it's a federal federal law.
Right.
It somehow comes in federal jurisdiction over unions, and it's different because some states are right to work states, and so every state has its own little individual.
Yeah, I felt like honored though, like because basically what they're saying is like we can't find an actor that we like who's already in the union.
Yeah.
Someone with lots of experience.
We can't find a professional, so we'll take
this guy off.
That's Jonathan Reep. Jonathan D.
No one can say him like he can. So yeah, I felt like that was a flattering type thing. So you got Taft Hartley, and you had to do the W. Earl Brown. Okay, well that makes total sense.
I went to DePaul. I went to grad school at DePaul in theater. And John Riley was he was there.
John C. Riley.
Yeah. Well, that's the joke, because John's done quite well.
Right.
You want success? Put an initial in your name. Put D in the middle of your name, and there is no telling where your career is going to go.
I wonder if that would work. I'm going to do that. Jonathan D. Reep. That sounds more actorish, more theater than John Reep. It just sounds very rednecky. But
yeah, but on the marquee outside of the clubs, that Jonathan D. Reep. Well, you might take the whole marquee, so like all the local guys get bumped.
Yeah, sorry, feature act, read all letters, we can't spell your name. John hogged up all the letters. Well, I also want to get into your background a little bit, because I am hearing an accent. It's rare out here to find someone. I tell people. I'm definitely from the South. I'm from North Carolina. I've got the Southern accent. Not as bad as I used to, but if I drink a little whiskey, it definitely seeps back out more.
A couple of beers or phone call from Mama, and the more Southern I get.
That's right. You too, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
So, but when you're out here in L.A. and you find another person who has a Southern accent, it's like, oh my God, I have to be best friends with this guy. So I coined the term Metro Jethro. Now, I would say that you fall in that category a little bit, because you got the Jethro side being from Kentucky, right?
It dawned on me, 2 birthdays ago, that I've now lived away from Kentucky longer than I lived there.
Well, is that right?
And I moved from, I grew up in Western Kentucky, outside of Murray State University.
That's where
Murray State,
right?
Yeah.
What did you study at Murray State, by the way?
Well, I started, my goal was to work at the local WPSD. I thought I'd be a producer, like a news producer.
Oh, okay.
I was the first in my family to even go to college.
Really?
Yeah.
And you got brothers,
Mama
sisters?
had gone. I have a sister that's 7 years older.
Yeah.
My mom had my sister when she was in high school, and my mom was her class valedictorian.
Oh, wow.
And so she was divorced with a baby when she was graduated from high school, the head of her class.
That sounds like Kentucky.
She tried to, she wanted to be a school teacher, and she tried to juggle college and a baby, and she couldn't.
Right.
She, I think she went for a year. Anyway, so I was the first to complete college, so Mama had gone. Anyway, it was there that the bug bit me, and I decided that was what I was going to do.
How did the bug bite you because of that? What was it you were doing?
Well, my major, I ended up declaring a radio television production major.
Okay.
And then I took an acting class on a whim. I was intimidated as hell by just being on the college campus.
Yeah.
And I was a country kid.
Right.
Didn't even grow up in town. Grew up 12 miles outside of town. And we had an elective, and I had this theatrical experience class. That's what it was. And the dean taught this class. And he was a big theater guy, and it was one of those 200 W. Earl Brown sign-in classes.
Right.
And he was talking about improvisational theater, and he was pulling kids out of the auditorium to do improv. I desperately wanted him to call me.
Really?
Oh, I was itching.
I'd have been scared to death.
Oh, boy, I wanted up there.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, man, I really wanted to. So I took an acting class on a whim. And my first day, and I became good friends with a lot of these folks, and still, thanks to Facebook, I'm in touch with some of them.
Right.
But it was, introduce yourself and where you're from, what you're doing here. Well, yes, my name is James, and I did summer stock in Indiana last year, where I did Shakespeare and Moliere, and it's this, I jokingly call them the black turtleneck and clove cigarette crowd.
Right.
And it gets to me, and I said, well, I'm Earl.
My name is Earl.
Yeah, I grew up out in the county here, and I ain't never done no play. Oh no, wait, I did a class play in the 8th grade. It was called "It's Cold and Then There Hills." We had a big speech team in high school, but I ain't never done no plays.
Right.
So then our first assignment was this Shakespeare soliloquy, and I was assigned Hamlet's "Alas, poor Yorick," the thing with the skull. Wish I knew it from fucking Gilligan's Island. Can I say fuck on
Yeah. I can bleep it out. But it's a podcast. We can do what we want.
If anybody's watched Deadwood, they'll...
Oh, yeah. Please.
Yeah, I can curse in iambic pentameter. But anyway, it was... when we did this Shakespeare soliloquy.
You learned that from Gilligan's Island.
Well, I knew,
That's hilarious.
how I knew it. I has to be or not to be. You know, remember that?
Vaguely, I remember that one. That's hilarious.
I'm a little older than you.
Yeah.
So that was how I first knew it, was Gilligan's Island. Of course, then
funny.
I read, I
You're like,
read.
oh, that's after something that actually happened. That's funny.
I memorized it. Anyway, we do the thing, and all of these classmates that had intimidated me, so not purposefully,
Right.
but they did.
Yeah.
Then I remember looking around thinking,
It can be very cliquish, too.
I thought, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Better actor than all you people combined.
Nice. Right.
And then the next year, I got cast in we did that championship season, the play. And that was the one when the curtain fell on that. Because we had a very active speech and debate team in high school. We had this incredible teacher, Larry England, that taught us. He says, look, you are who you think you are. Mm-hmm. There is nothing in life that's not attainable if you're willing to work for it.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with being a farm kid and staying here and working on a farm if that's what you want.
Right.
But don't feel like you're stuck with that.
Right.
So that was ingrained in us. And my wife, that's how we met. I was 4 years older.
Yeah.
But she was in that same program in high school.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so anyway.
I agree with that, by the way. Like that, what your teacher said.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite quotes is from, this is going to sound stupid, the Last Starfighter. It's an old science fiction film.
I saw it here. First time I ever came to California in 1981. That's a story in and of itself. That's
Really?
a Metro Jethro story. I saw Last Starfighter at the Hollywood, the Dome.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
that one of my favorite quotes is Alpha Centauri comes down from the other planet or whatever to recruit this kid who beat the high score of this video game, and so he's trying to talk this kid into you need to come up here to our galaxy and save the universe basically, and he says I can't do that. I'm just a kid from a trailer park, and he goes, if that's what you think, that's all you'll ever be. And then that just dawned on me, wow, so you can do whatever you want. And it's a dumb movie to get the quote from, but it's a good thing that I kind of live my life by that a little bit. Well, if you think something, if that's what you really think about yourself, then that's all you're going to be. It's true.
See, it hit me. Well, a couple things. My dad always had a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah,
folks like us.
Right.
Folks like us can't get a break. Folks like us, they wouldn't let me play. When I was in Little League, I was really good, simply because I was twice as big as all the other kids.
Baseball.
Yeah. So I couldn't play in town. I couldn't play in that league because that's where the doctors and lawyers kids play. Yeah. Then they wouldn't give you a chance.
Right.
It doesn't matter how good you are.
Yeah.
So I had to play over at Hardin, with the farm kid league.
Right.
And but I remember thinking, but it's because you see yourself that way. It's because you're setting yourself at a disadvantage already. It's your insecurities that are, and I recognized it even, as a little kid.
Yeah.
So when I was in college, the bug had bitten me pretty hard. And my best friend, Mickey Hudson, he was in theater there with me. We'd gone to high school together, on the speech team together. And Mick said, that he was getting his teaching degree.
Yeah.
But he wanted to be a professional actor. And he said, I've given myself a 3-year plan. I said, what?
Right.
He goes, I'm going to go to New York, or I'm going to go to Hollywood. And when I finish college, and he goes, I'm giving myself 3 years. And if in 3 years' time, if nothing's happened, then I tried. I gave it everything I had. And he said, he goes, I don't want to be 75 years old looking back at my life wondering, what if?
Right.
Yeah, I tried it. It didn't work. I went on and did something else.
Right.
But I know I have my answer.
Right.
Well, that hit me like a ton of bricks. This was one of those, sitting around beer or sitting out at the lake conversations, where the profundity.
Philosophizing.
Oh, yeah, philosophizing. That's exactly, man. A lot of decisions have been made in my life sitting by Kentucky Lake drinking stolen Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Right.
Stolen from my dad, by the way.
Right.
Although Daddy didn't care.
Yeah, really. He left it out there on purpose so you could find it.
So I could go philosophize.
Yeah, of
and
course.
find myself.
Well, we have a lot in common because I also got into acting weird in a weird way. Like, it wasn't like I grew up liking comedy. I was a comedy fan first.
There's my comedy collection.
There's Richard
my
Pryor.
final's not there, but
right.
The Richard Pryor box set, Lenny Bruce box set,
classic.
There's a bunch of Jerry Clower. All the albums are inside. I got about 30 albums.
By the way, for those of you listening, we're sitting in Earl's office, which is like a What do you? Was this a garage to begin with?
This was a garage, and this was when I was 17 years old. This is the bedroom I dreamt of having.
There's a stripper pole in here. There's like 18 guitars, and we've got a full skeleton just hanging from a beam.
There's an original Farrah Fawcett poster over there, and as I'm fond of saying, I lost my virginity to that poster.
Well, I'm going to take pictures if you don't mind. Can I take pictures and put this on the website of just certain things?
Too bad we don't have video.
Yeah. Well, I can make a video. I don't know if it'll go on the website, but yeah.
I got lightsabers from Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, there's my earmuffs from Something About Mary.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, we're going to get to that.
Earmuffs.
Those I'm going to take a picture of
Those are the earmuffs.
Okay.
Or one of them. I mean, we had a bunch of them. But
So I'm sitting here, and I'm thinking, like, because I got into acting by accident, too, because I barely got into NC State University. When I went to, growing up in Hickory, I went to a community college for 2 years because that's just, I didn't know what to do. Like, you graduate from high school, it's like, what are you doing? What's Booger and Shay doing?
Yeah.
They're going to CVCC
Exactly.
Community College. I guess that's what I'm doing.
And remember seeing the dude that was like 27 still hanging at the court square? I remember thinking, God, don't let that be me.
I
don't know what in the hell I'm going to do, but don't let that
That
be
is the
me.
great thing about a community college. There are all types in there. When you go to a real college, it's mostly kids.
Yeah.
But when you go to a community college, you don't know what you're going to run into there. They got like non-traditional students in their like 50s trying to start over again. And who knows what that story
But
is.
at least they're doing something.
Yeah, at
Not
least they're
hanging
doing
on the
something.
court square, sitting on the back of their pickup at 27.
Exactly.
Scamming high school girls.
I had no idea what I was going to do. I was like, well, I'm just going to do what my friends are doing. And then I
Same thing.
farted around in community college for 2 years. And then I'm like, well, my buddy Booger, oddly enough, words of wisdom came from Booger. He goes like, hey, I heard about this program you can take at NC State where you can take 2 classes and a PE, and if you do good, they might let you in as a full-time student. I go, that's all I need to hear. I was like, now I got to talk my parents into that plan, because they're going to fund it. So I go home and I tell my dad, and I basically use the same story your buddy does. Like, if I don't try, I'll never know, know? Like, you got to give me a chance. And I talk my parents into
Oh, hell, let him go to college and fail there. At least he'll know.
He's like, wait, you're going to be 3 hours away from me? That's a good idea. Yeah, I'll fund that. Just get out of here. He won't be out of the house, I think, So I go to NC State, and it took me two semesters to even do good enough to be admitted as a full-time student. So then I was like, okay, this is serious. I started getting serious. Like, all right, I got to pick a major now, and I didn't know what to pick. So I thought, like, well, I better pick something easy, because I barely got into this program. So let me look around to see what's easy. I'm looking at all the different things. I go, well, what are the athletes taking? I got to be at least as smart as an athlete who barely got into, So I'm thinking, well, a lot of them are taking theater. I was like, that's interesting. I'll just be a theater major. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I'll just be a theater major. So it was an accident. I got in there, and like you, pretty pretentious crowd. The turtlenecks and the
clove cigarettes.
The clove cigarettes. Very, very. They already know each other. I'm like the outsider redneck type jock guy.
Exact same thing, man.
Just came from flag football practice, and I'm like, can I be in y'all's group? And I realized pretty quick that once I got in there and I took this acting class, that people were asking me like, oh my God, can I be your partner in the next project or next scene? I was like, yeah, I guess. I was like, what? I'm like, well, you guys are thinking too hard about this. So I just, I was told I was good by other classmates and the teacher, and I thought like, wow. Then when someone tells you you're good at something, then you go like, maybe I'll do it. And it makes you feel like I should do this. Like you're sort of meant to do it. So, yeah, I kind of backed into it a little bit. And then comedy came after that. There was a comedy club right there. But, so we have, it's so funny. Our stories
exact same thing.
Pretty much.
I got involved with the debate there in college, speech and debate.
Murray?
Yeah. But just because I could do comedy.
Right.
I'd do afternoon speaking and just write comedy bits.
Right.
And at first, because Belushi was my hero. As you see all the Belushi shit all over here. Yeah, I see a little
Belushi guy right there.
So, I knew the Second City because of them. So sketch comedy was kind of more pulling me that way because that was what he did.
Right.
But I used to memorize, you can see all my comedy records. I used to memorize the shit.
Right.
I'd watch Make Me Laugh, the syndicated game show with comedians.
I remember
and
that.
I'd just steal their jokes and I'd go to school the next day and act like they were mine. And SNL and SCTV, man, I would sit and watch them religiously.
Second City TV, I remember that.
And so it was... I did stuff around. There was a guy trying to open a comedy club in Paducah, and he asked a couple of us to come down and do stuff.
Right.
So we went one night, and there was a professor at school, Bob Valentine, very bright man and very funny. Bob's a big he makes quite a living as an after dinner speaker.
Okay.
But this guy wanted to do comedy, but he didn't want to pay us.
Right.
Like nothing. Like we're going to drive 40 miles down here to Paducah for nothing.
Right.
And tell jokes?
Yeah.
Nah, I'll just sit in my back. I'll sit down at the lake with some Pabst.
Yeah, exactly. So you were in Murray State. Well, first of all, let me backtrack a minute because I'm guessing people are wondering how we even know each other. Because I met you through another friend of ours named Lance Patrick.
And I met Lance through Toby Keith. Toby is a friend, and I was out at one of his shows. And what happened, the way I met Toby, his road crew were Deadwood fanatics.
Right.
And
as everyone should be.
Well, Rob Bias, who is Blake Sheldon's band leader, had written me a fan letter on MySpace. So we start corresponding.
Wow.
And he just said, I don't know if you listen to country music at all, because I'm a big country music nut.
Right.
Well, of course I knew who Blake was.
Uh-huh.
So we just start this correspondence, and he says, Toby was playing here. He goes, his crew, they're big fans. They'd love to invite you to a show. So I go, and me and Toby just hit it off.
Right.
So anytime he's through,
he a good guy? He seems
nice
like
guy.
he would be.
Yeah.
Every time I see him on late night talk shows,
he is exactly the guy you see.
Yeah.
That's him.
Right.
And then Lance was out. This was a show a couple of years ago at San Bernardino. This was about a year after Last Comic or so, maybe a year and a half.
Okay.
And I met him at the show, and we talked, and we were talking about this comedian, that comedian. I said, you know who cracks me up? It's that Southern guy, the dude from the HEY commercials, Reep. He goes, oh, I know John.
That was Lance, yeah.
Yeah.
And so Lance says, hey, a friend of mine wants to come to I was doing a show at the Improv on Melrose.
Yeah.
And so that's where we met.
That was it.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? This guy's awesome.
Well, I couldn't remember where. I'm still trying to remember. It may have been the HEY commercials at very first, but I'd seen. But this was before Last Comic. I knew who you were before that.
So, okay, yeah. Well, maybe it was.
I love storytellers. I've told you that. I love great storytellers, and you're a great storyteller.
Like Bill Cosby, Richard Pryor.
Yeah,
that's me too. I love a good storyteller.
And Carlin is the one for me. As a kid, it was Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
And, Jerry Clower, of course. Knock him out, John.
We gotta pull up some Jerry Clower for this podcast at some point because I'm here's what I'm finding out because John Heffron is my partner on this podcast and we're getting random people who aren't necessarily fans of me or necessarily fans of him. They're just fans of like comedy podcasts who don't know anything about us.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I might have to introduce them to some Clower because that's
what
old
nobody
school.
here. I mean, I saw Jerry several times.
Yeah.
And nobody's even heard of Jerry.
Yeah.
I kind of had this epiphany moment when you feel like one of these moments when you feel like maybe I've arrived.
Yeah.
This was after something about Mary and the casting exec at Fox wanted to meet me.
Right.
So I go over there dressed up in my suit and tie, and I'm sitting there waiting for my meeting with the big head of the studio casting.
Right.
And CNN was on. Jerry had died. It was on. The package was on.
Oh, really?
That Clower had died. It was that day. So I'm sitting there watching, oh, hell, Jerry died.
Yeah.
And I get called in, So it was kind of this meeting of that was one of the guys, especially as far as comedy. He was the first comedian. Him and Wendy Bagwell, some of the guys that did, the country comedy. Wendy was a gospel singer that would do stories.
Remember you tell me about this?
Yeah. I'll play you one of his records. Anyway, those were the first ones that I saw. But then I got a Pryor 8-track.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That was the first one I had. And I just loved Pryor. And then I discovered Carlin.
Yeah.
And Carlin was the one, and still, my daughter's always, she does, because George has been gone.
Yeah.
She was, he's been gone 6-7 years.
Yeah,
but Carlin made me think about stuff.
Right.
It was like the first time I heard 7 dirty words.
Yeah.
Because it was always the same thing. You'd say one of them.
You get smacked. Right.
Yeah. Last time I got my ass whipped.
Well, I always thought it was weird. It's like tits is a bad word on the radio or on TV. You can't say tits.
Well, that was Carlin's bit. Sounds like a snack. That's right. I know it is. New Nabisco tits. But you can't eat just one.
That's right.
Like a nickname. Tits, meat, toots, toots, tits, tits, toots. Anyway, the last time I got my ass whipped, I was 12. I had Ted Nugent blaring on the stereo, and I'm sitting there reading Cream magazine, and it's time for church.
Right.
And I was wearing...
That is so subtle.
I was wearing camouflage Snuggie underwear
Nice.
Because when I got in high school, white underwear, that was not cool. So the Sears catalog, I'd go find, whatever.
Camo Snuggie.
Yeah.
What do you mean, like
Camo
thermal?
briefs. No, briefs. Briefs.
Okay. Nice.
And my mom comes in. She's like, young man, you know what time it is? It's time for church. You get up. You get dressed from here. She goes out. She closes the door. Me just being so cool. I went, yeah. Fuck you, Mom. Woo!
Wow.
I don't care how loud you play Ted. Mama can still hear that.
God.
I heard the feet. Door slams open. She's standing there. You remember the paddle balls?
Yeah.
That's what I got my ass whipped with.
Oh.
We had a paddle ball. It was up in the linen closet. Mama's got the paddle in her hand. What'd you say to me?
God.
Nothing. I heard you, young man. You just.
Wow.
So around that same time, I hear Carlin. And this whole idea that, bad words, like, the whole opening of the bit, 400,000 words, and there's 7 of them that are bad.
Right.
And then bad thoughts, bad feelings, bad intentions, yes. But no words. I thought, wow, he's right. Like his bit about Roberto Clemente, TV announcer can say, Roberto Clemente's got 2 balls on him. But he can't say, ooh, I think he hurt his balls on that play, Kurt.
Right.
I think, oh.
That is weird. That's all FCC right there.
Wow. Yeah, it was. Those were the FCC rules.
Yeah.
Those were the words you couldn't say.
That's bizarre.
And his bit about it, it's okay to prick your finger, but don't finger your prick. And again, as a 12,
I gotta listen to it again. It's been too long.
As a 12-year-old brought up in a Baptist church where there was a lot of hand slapping going on.
Right.
I mean, not my mom, just in general.
Just in general, yeah.
Yeah.
You used to be able to hit kids back then.
Yeah. Well, when I'd get the look in church, when I'd be squirming in church and I would get the look,
Yeah.
And then you're going to get your ass whipped when you get home.
Yeah.
And then you're just like an angel in the car ride all the way home.
Oh, yeah. But you're shitting bricks.
And my sister's, you're going to get one. We get home, you're going to get it. I said, no, I'm not. But, I was good in the car on the way home. You're going to get it. I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
And then here come Mama with a paddle. What'd I tell you at church?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me nothing. You looked at me. That's telling you. Bend over. So
Yeah, I used to get beat with a switch.
Oh yeah.
This is,
That prior bit. You remember that one?
Yeah.
About his grandma making him go cut the switch.
Yes, I mean that.
Oh God, that
Those
was my
are
life.
so.
Yeah.
I think that's why they're long-lasting, historical, just iconic bits. Is because
The humanity
this just so
in it.
happened.
It happened. You know.
I had to pick a switch. I remember, the worst beating I got was when I talked back to my dad, and I didn't do it go as bad as what you did, but I was in the kitchen, and our kitchen was right up against the living room, so. You had the tile floor, and then you go on the carpet, right? So I had a Pop-Tart or something and some tea in my hand. I was getting ready to go from the kitchen to the living room to sit down and watch TV, and Dad goes, "Don't bring that in here. No, eat that in the kitchen." I go, "I don't have to if I don't want to," and I sat right down. And he goes, "What did you say? You don't have to if you don't want to?"
Boy, you might want to go smell the corners in this house, because you know who's pissed in them? Me.
My house, buddy. My rules. So I got beat pretty hard that day with a switch.
Let me tell you something. As long as I pay the bills.
Yeah. Hey, them's the rules, buddy. So, yeah. Now, when you... a lot of people are going to know you, obviously. I mean, what would you say is the biggest thing that most people would know you from, but maybe not know you from?
Well, something about
Mary, right?
Frank and Beans.
That's it, folks. That's Warren, the mentally challenged brother of Mary. Beans, Franks and Beans. I always say Beans and Franks.
Well, it went both ways. I said it both ways. Yeah.
How did that part happen?
It was one of those things. How sometimes the fates seem like they lead you towards something,
Yeah.
And I had I got to do the first Scream movie, which was the first thing I was in that I had a pretty decent sized role in. That was a big, huge hit.
Scream before
Scream, the
Something
first
About
Scream.
Mary.
Yeah,
Right,
it happened in '96.
Camera guy.
Yes, I played Kenny. I mean, it didn't take a lot. It didn't take anything special for me to play that role. But,
But hey, that's a big part of a big budget movie.
Well, I was doing a mini-series for CBS called Bella Mafia, which was a really kind of overwritten melodrama about all the males in this mafia family are killed and the females take over, right?
Oh,
I'm kind of the screw-up son. That's the role I'm playing.
Right.
And Jennifer Tilly was playing my wife. Mm-hmm. Well, some of these scenes, they were really kind of hammy. So we played it a little tongue-in-cheek. We were kind of making fun of, just our interpretation.
Right.
Well, the director loved it.
Well,
he encouraged us because it gave some levity to it, you know. So there's just one scene, we have a sex scene, and we completely made it a goof.
Right.
You know, and the crew's cut, and the crew's dying laughing. And Gary Yoshiba was a camera assistant. And Gary comes over, and he had done I had done 3 Wes Craven movies at this point. Vampire in Brooklyn, A New Nightmare, and then Scream.
Vampire in Brooklyn, was that Eddie Murphy?
Yeah, it was Ed.
Oh my God, yeah.
There's a story in that one,
I forgot about that one.
But anyway, Gary had shot all those because he always works for Mark Irwin's camera crew.
Okay.
And Mark does Wes's films. Anyway, they do all the Farrelly Brother movies. And Yoshiba came over to me. He just hired on this TV thing just as a side gig. He goes, man, you're funny. All this stuff we've done together, I've never heard you be funny. You're funny. We're doing this new Farrelly Brothers movie. You should read it because it's the funniest script I've ever read in my life. It's called There's Something About Mary. So I was with a small agency at that time, so it was difficult to even get material.
Yeah.
Days later, I'm at the gym here at Bally's Fitness over at Studio City, and I'm on a Stairmaster.
Yeah.
Lynn Shay is on the Stairmaster next to me. Because she did a bunch of Wes Craven films.
Lynn Shay, She
played Magda in the movie in
Okay.
Something About Mary. And she had been Miss Dumar in Dumb and Dumber.
Ah, gotcha.
Or in Kingpin, she was Dumar.
Kingpin,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, yeah.
So I brought up, I said, we have a mutual friend who's, sweating next to one another. And I said, Wes Craven. And I saw, you were in New Nightmare. She goes, yeah, this, that, and the other. And I said, yeah, I just watched, because I've rewatched the Farrelly Brothers movies. Mm-hmm. And I said, I saw you, in the Farrellys. She goes, I tell you, I'm doing this new Farrelly's movie. It's the funniest script I've ever read in my life. It's called There's Something About Mary. So within a couple of days, 2 people, completely out of the blue, have given me the title of this thing.
And saying it's the funniest thing I've ever read.
So I told my manager, I just started working with Lynn, and I said, all right, well, here's your first project. Find me this script called Something About Mary. So she gets it to me. Uh-huh. And as soon as I read it, it was like the lights went on like this.
Right.
Because it wasn't on the page. There were very few lines. Uh-huh. Some of the stuff that's in the film, a few things, he was masturbating, that was all improvised.
Okay.
Yeah. So there wasn't a lot to it. So I told my manager, I said, I want to do this. And my manager did not like broad farce comedy.
When you were reading this, though, did you see the part... was that...
Completely.
Were you thinking, I got to play this part?
Yes.
Or was there another part you were thinking
No, I knew Warren.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because he was described as big and hulking, and so I was part of this improv group with Amy Peets, who you've worked with.
Amy Peets, who was in the Rodney sitcom, who played Rodney's wife's sister, and oddly enough, we were about to do our own. She was going to be my love interest.
I've heard there was a little S&M there.
Yeah. Well, you never
50
saw
Shades of Hey!
50 Shades of Hey. Oh my God.
There's a bit in that. There's a bit in that.
That is brilliant. I'm stealing that from you.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks.
When this turns off, we'll work on it afterwards.
Yes, 50 Shades of Hey.
Hey!
That's
Do it
good.
like Gomer.
Hey, y'all.
Anyway, what were we talking about?
You were talking about...
with Amy. Amy is part of this improv group at her house. And it was all working actors that we just get together on a Sunday afternoon and just play. We weren't making a show. It was just kind of refreshing to, especially the ones that were doing dramas.
Yeah.
We just do improv. Amy's husband, Kenny, was part of Paul Sills' group up in Door County. Paul founded the Second City, the Compass Players. He was one of the original ones.
Oh, really?
Elaine May, Mike Nichols, Paul Sills. His mother, Viola Spolin, wrote the book, Improv of the Theater. That's his mom.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, Kenny was a part of Paul's little insular group, and Kenny would lead these things. Well, there was another dude there. Most of them were from Chicago, which I'd lived there 7 years. And there was this guy, Rob Moran. I kept thinking, how the hell do I know Rob? Then it dawns on me when I was rewatching Dumb and Dumber. Kingpin. Kingpin. He's Stanley the evil bowler in Kingpin.
Okay.
And next Sunday I went, finally figured out how I know you, man. You're Stanley the evil bowler. He says, yeah. He goes, I did Dumb and Dumber too. He goes, I'm the bartender when Jim has the date and the girl stood him up. He goes, I'm the bartender that we had those long scenes. I'm like, yeah, man. I said, do you know the Farrellys? He goes, oh, yeah, I grew up with them. He said, I've known them since I was a teenager. I'm from Rhode Island. I said, because, man, I'm trying my best to get on Something About Mary. And he went, Warren, are you interested in playing Warren? I said, yeah. He goes, because they can't find anybody.
Really?
He goes, they've seen 100 people. They can't find anybody.
Wow.
So that night he calls me. He goes, I just talked to Bobby. They want to see you Tuesday.
Nice.
Who's your agent? So I go in Tuesday. I played it straight. I just knew instinctively. I mean, there's things where, you're a comedian. There's things where you can take something that's plain and you can laugh it up. You can goof it up and make it funny.
Right.
And I just knew instinctively with that role, if you, Joe Dirt it, if you do that, then the audience is going to hate you. Because you're making fun of someone with...
You're right, it's a very delicate line you've got to walk anytime you're playing a mentally challenged person.
Yeah, but the only way to make that funny, because that movie hinged on the relationships between the people. Even as broad and goofy as it was, you believed the characters and you cared about the characters. You wanted to see them together.
Yeah.
And you believed... And a big part of why Warren was funny was the way she related to me, too. She didn't relate to me as, oh, this is Warren, my handicapped brother.
Like she was ashamed of you.
Yeah, this is Warren, my brother.
Yeah.
So anyway, I auditioned. It went well. There were a bunch of people in the room the first time. So they call me a week later. They want me to come back. And I go. And in the interim, I'd been out shopping with my wife. And there was this girl I saw shopping with her mom who was mentally retarded, and I noticed the way that she moved her head. It was like it was on a ball pivot.
Right.
And I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to steal that. I'm going to do that. So that's the only thing I changed when I went back in the second time. And there were 4 other guys there. It was a callback, and they were all stand-ups. There was one guy I recognized.
Anybody I know?
I can't remember who was who. It was just faces I recognized from comedy specials and stuff.
Right.
One in particular, and I'm pretty sure they were all comics. But that's what they'd been seeing. They'd just been seeing comics.
Yeah.
And so I go in, and I was playing it straight, and I could hear the one guy, and I could hear him amping it up and playing goofy.
Right.
Yeah.
Just go
piggyback wide, and I knew that's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
So I went back in, and I did my thing, and I'm kind of shaky. I was not happy because the second time wasn't as good as the first, and I knew it.
Okay.
And Pete goes, that was great. I said, can we do that again?
You asked him to do it again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pete said, no, there's no need. And I said, yeah, but I think... he goes, no, I know, I could see, but you're the guy we want. So you don't have to do it again. So that was the time of like,
don't fix
then you play it cool.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to completely play it cool.
Right.
And, cool. All right,
did you get the whole, like, the finger, you're doing the fingers too? Like you were, did you see that from the same girl that you got the head?
The only thing changed in the, was my walk. When I got to Miami is where I found that.
Oh, really?
Everything else was there. We had rehearsals, and then I was walking the streets. They put me in the shitty motel, but I did get to go over to the fancy place to work out. So in Coral Gables, there were no street lights. The streets are dark. So that night, walking back, I started messing with. I thought, probably has cerebral palsy. Just because you have cerebral palsy doesn't mean you have a mental handicap. But oftentimes, if it's due to brain damage at birth, oftentimes CP will go along with that.
Right.
So, looking back, there was actually somebody I went to high school with. Mm-hmm. I didn't consciously go, I'm going to walk like that guy.
Right.
But that's exactly where I took it.
Okay.
Because when my wife saw it, she went, you did our high school buddy.
She recognized that walk, huh? That's okay.
So anyway, that when the walk came, and then it was like flicking a switch, like I could turn it off and on, and I knew.
Nice.
And one of the, I'm not big on the, these actors that I am my character, call me by my character name.
I only respond to Warren.
But they were messing with haircuts because I had long hair when I first got there. And I was walking back and forth between the makeup trailer and the set to show them these different, as they were trimming my hair.
Okay.
So I had the wardrobe on. So I walked, because I still wasn't completely, and it was the first time in daylight that, so I walked as Warren just so I could get used to moving in those clothes that way.
Yeah.
What struck me was people on the sidewalk, because I was walking like 3 or 4 blocks by myself. People on the I saw twice people cross the street so they wouldn't walk by me.
That means you're doing a good job.
But it's also but what sunk into me as an actor of anybody in this condition, they're going to recognize that. They're going to recognize that people are uncomfortable around them.
Yeah, yeah.
That two people cross the street
Oh, right.
so they won't walk by you.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, what's that do?
Well, I also noticed that you did the whole, and we talked about this last time, about how you don't make eye contact.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, a lot of mentally challenged people, they don't look you in the eye. They sort of, their head's always moving around.
Yeah.
But they also try to avoid eye contact with you.
But I came up with reasons for all of that stuff. That's the thing you got to do as an actor. Again, you can't make an issue. I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
But the whole bit of touch my ear, I go crazy.
Right.
Well, I thought, well, why?
Okay.
I found out there was a real Warren. He plays Freddy in the movie. They grew up with him. He grew up down the street from him. They based the character on Warren Tasian.
Okay.
When the orange T-shirts when she's handing out hamburgers on the beach, and he goes, "Will you marry me, Mary?" And she goes, "What about Vivian?" or whatever the other girl's name was. And he says, "Yeah, I want to marry you." And he kisses her. That's Warren Tasian.
Oh.
Well, I didn't even know Warren Tasian existed when I first did the role.
Yeah.
And then Warren came, and his parents were with him, and I found out everything. Warren was brain damaged from birth.
Okay.
And he had CP as a part of the same issue.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and Warren was the past president of the National Association of Retarded Citizens.
Really?
Warren lived independently.
Wow.
He worked as a chimney sweep.
Wow. I've brought this up to people before. Where I'm from, we're not ashamed, or we don't try to hide our mentally challenged or retarded people. We put them to work. I mean, they can do things. I had an uncle named Kenneth who was mentally challenged. So my whole life, my mom's oldest brother, Kenneth. And my mom had 7 or 8 brothers and sisters. They're everywhere. But one of them was Kenneth, and he was mentally challenged. But he worked. I mean, he would go down to a local store and bag groceries, and he could walk home. But, I mean, at the end of the day, he was mentally challenged, but he could do things.
But
the big cities, they hide him in institutions, and they let's try to fix that.
Coddle it, or they can't take care of it. That a big lesson. That's what drew me to acting, and it still does.
Yeah.
Is that I learned so much about myself.
Yeah.
Just through, because you put on the cloak of somebody else. It took me many years to recognize that I'm pretending. It was safe. The stage was safe because it's not me.
Right.
I'm a character. It's not me.
Uh-huh.
Then you realize, no,
it is
all of that dark stuff that comes out is you.
Right.
It is you. And it gives you, this sense of just empathy for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But one lesson I learned going to Chicago, coming from, blue-collar, working-class background, I always thought if we had money, there wouldn't be this problem. We had money.
Right. Like money would solve all your problems.
Now, we weren't poor. I mean, for my school and class, we were working middle class.
Mm-hmm.
Mama worked, and
right.
And I was the first kid in my school to go to Disney World. Disney World opened in 1972. I was the first kid at school out there at Disney World. We'd go to the Smoky Mountains every year.
Uh-huh. Right.
So it's not like we were poor.
We were poor, yeah.
But
you could always use more money.
Yeah, but I remember the fights between my parents at night, hearing them yell about money.
Yeah.
Of course, as I got older, I recognized it's more than just money. There's a lot more at play.
Yeah.
But as a kid,
it's easy to blame your problems on the lack of money.
Yeah.
Then when you get money and that's not the problem anymore, then you got to look at you.
Yeah. Well, most people don't.
Exactly, because they don't get the money.
That's where they implode.
Right.
So anyway, when I moved to Chicago, one of my classmates, I went to grad school at the Goodman. There's a story for...
What's the Goodman?
The Goodman it's the theater school of DePaul. It was
DePaul.
the Goodman School of Drama.
Okay.
They were just changing the name between the Goodman and theater school when I was there.
So how did you get from Murray to DePaul?
Well, that's a story. Let me finish this. The work thing you brought up is what makes me think.
Right.
I'm guessing that a lot of folks, listen to this are from the same socioeconomic background and stuff as us.
Sure.
But one of my classmates was from New York City. He and I hit it off, best friends. We could not be more different. From the Upper East Side of New York, an incredibly wealthy family, Jewish, the polar opposite of me.
Right.
But we became very close friends. Mm-hmm. And
that's the great thing about college, man. It's everybody coming together, and you can have his grandfather had owned the Boston Gardens, and he owned the Boston Bruins. Oh, wow.
And they owned a lot of sports franchise, and he started it as a vendor. His grandfather was on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Jesus.
Called the Godfather of Sports.
This is big cash we're talking here.
Yeah. Well, I'll say Seth Jacobs. We're still friends, and he's a professor at Boston College now, history professor. But anyway, with Seth, it was, he had everything that I thought, that's what perfect life was growing up. millions of dollars. You would never, ever know this guy with the way he lived, with the way that, you know, he was fascinated.
He didn't live like he didn't flaunt it or anything, right?
He had a really nice apartment. All of his bills went to his family's account, and everything's taken care of. He's in a trust fund.
Right.
He seemed to be fascinated with my life, with the way I grew up. I was exceptionally close with my granddaddy, especially my mama's daddy. You know, taught me how to work, taught me to do, you know, work on the farm, mechanics, all this stuff that a man's supposed to learn. You know? And Seth was talking about, you know, how he said my grandfather was bloodthirsty and money hungry. And he came to this country that way. And every negative connotation you can think about somebody was him.
Wow.
And just the issues, you know, and the struggle. And it dawned on me that how much sense of worth people get from earning their own way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, when you earn it, it means more.
It means more. That was the thing with Granddaddy, because Daddy was a car dealer, right? He had a car dealership, used cars. But I was going to get me a new Trans Am.
Yeah.
That was going to get me. I was going to get the Daytona 500 special. No, it was silver.
Okay.
He had one, and he'd had to sell it when I was 15. That's what I was going to get, right? So Daddy lost his ass, and we almost lost our house. Thanks to my mom, we didn't. But anyway, ain't nobody gonna buy me no new car.
Right.
So Granddaddy says, well, won't you come over to the farm and we'll cut firewood. Said, you can use my truck, you can use my saws, I'll help you. But let's put an ad in the paper. You take out an ad, and so I go for 6 weeks, cut firewood, August and September, using his ton truck and selling firewood.
Nice.
So I bought my first car, and I bought it with my money. I bought a '76 Monte Carlo.
Earned that car.
But that's what Granddaddy told me. He said, look, I know you're disappointed. You ain't going to get no fancy sports car.
Yeah.
But what you get, you will have earned. It'll mean more. And I remember thinking, right.
Yeah.
Try to get some stinky on you pinky and some old fucking beater.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
But I didn't have to buy a beater. I bought a decent car.
What was it again?
It was 1976 Monte Carlo.
Those were badass
Silver
too.
with swivel bucket seats,
Those
baby.
I remember people loved those cars.
No,
that wasn't the Trans Am, but it was still a pretty badass car.
You know, only 3 years old. But anyway, it was a lesson that hit me. And it came really when I was with Seth in Chicago, of he had no relationship with his grandfather. What little he had was abusive.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, he said all that mattered to that old man was work and money.
Right.
And anything else that got in the way of it. And Granddaddy taught me how to take care of myself, and how, you know, not to say that Seth couldn't take care of himself. He's an incredibly bright guy.
Yeah.
But how much sense of self-worth you get.
True.
You know?
Right.
And I'm not a staunch
So he
believer.
admired
I
you.
believe in social programs and there being something there to help people get a leg up.
Yeah.
Because if it hadn't been for student loans and government-backed student loans, I couldn't have gone to grad school.
Right.
It would not have happened.
Right. That's true for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I've paid it all back. You know, my wife, her father was killed in Vietnam, or he actually died in States, but he was active duty.
Yeah.
So her college was paid for because of
Military.
VA. Yeah. But again,
your buddy
when you
looking
earn
at you,
something, but people have to have a leg up. They have to have the opportunity.
Yeah.
And had it not been there for me, wouldn't have happened.
Right.
So, but again, it was that big learning of who's wealthier.
What do you define as wealth? Is it money, or is it just a happy life?
Contentment with life.
Right. Yeah.
And if you think that's what it comes from, because I know a lot of really miserable wealthy people.
Yeah.
That it's in it, because that whole you think that chip on your shoulder, folks like us, and then you get it, but you still have that hole in the middle,
right?
And then you're just more miserable.
That's why when you see a lot of like these lottery winners who are like poor white trash, and they win the lottery, that stuff's gone.
Destroys
pretty quick.
their life. The money's gone.
They think that will solve all their problems, and really it's all about you know what's inside of you. Yep. But I want to get back to a little bit about the mentally challenged thing.
We're getting a little heavy. This is a comedy podcast.
No, dude.
Man, you know what? I feel like I'm at Kentucky Lake with some Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Do you have any beer in here? I see some Woodford Reserve over there. So you're a Kentucky guy. Do you prefer bourbon over whiskey? Or do you care about that?
But it's almost all bourbon if I'm drinking dark liquor.
It's bourbon.
And I've gotten a taste for tequila. That's my summer drink. You can tell what the temperature is. If I'm drinking tequila, it's summertime.
So right about now, you're a bourbon guy, right?
Yeah, well, there's the Woodruff Reserve.
Yeah. But the my Uncle Kenneth, getting back to the whole mentally challenged thing, is like he did another thing that I noticed that you did was you're constantly smiling. A lot, not constantly, but you're smiling almost at times when it's no need for it or something, you know. And he did that a lot. And the way that you said Mary treated Warren was affectionate, not love. She wasn't ashamed, and that's how my family was. My mom was like Mary, in that she was proud of her brother Kenneth because he was able to do all these stuff, even though he did have these handicaps. And
because what he had, he earned. He did, you know.
And he felt good about himself.
Not given the best tools with which to build a house,
right?
But what tools you've got, you're able to build something.
But we loved him, and he knew that. And it's like you're allowed to make fun of or poke fun at your family, but if an outsider
does, oh hell
then
no,
that's like he's going to the ground. So we would do that.
It's like redneck jokes.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
When I hear somebody start degrading some dumbass hillbillies.
Yeah, who don't know?
No.
Yeah, they don't know what they're talking about. Well, I remember one Christmas, my mom's side of the family would all get together and we'd play this game where you buy a gift and you put it in the middle and you draw a number and you can steal a gift from somebody else. I forgot what it's called, but every year I wouldn't know what to get. The guys have to buy a men's gift and the women would have to buy a female gift, and that's how we played. And I thought, well, this year I'll just get an old dirty shoe and I'll put it in a box and I'll put a gift certificate inside of the shoe. So, you know, at the end of the day, you're still getting a present, but you think you're getting something? It's a dumb joke. Now, I didn't think Kenneth would get that gift. So he opens the gift and he sees this old dirty shoe and he just goes, I don't think it's going to fit. And that was just like, it brought the house down. And we weren't laughing at him. It was just like the moment.
But that's the thing with Warrentasion. We went to a football game. The Pats were playing the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So they're all from Rhode Island, so they're Pats freaks, right?
Right.
Warren was with us at the football game. And a really well-known sportscaster gets off the elevator. Warrentasion is funny.
Yeah.
He knows. He purposefully says things that are funny.
Because he knows people laugh. And
he's got a sense of humor.
Right.
People don't they're uncomfortable. And he walked up to this famous sportscaster, and I forget what he said, but it was something. He was a joke. It was a lighthearted thing. This guy completely blew him off.
Oh yeah.
It was again that
he didn't know how to do it. He didn't know how to handle it.
No.
Yeah.
Because well, he's retarded. You know, he can't know that's. I can't laugh at him.
Right.
I'm not laughing at him.
He's trying to make you laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a couple of, some of the sweetest compliments that have been paid. But there was this girl telling me about her two brothers both had Downs. Mm-hmm. And she said they were watching something about Mary at her mom's house. And she said her older brother, she goes, Warren came on the screen. It's the one with Have You Seen My Baseball at the school.
Right.
And he goes walking up to the TV screen. She goes, he points he goes, he's special. He's like me.
Oh, that's great.
And she goes, he went back and sit down. And I thought, that's what everybody needs to see themselves. Like we were talking about Richard Pryor and George Carlin and stuff, and those stories that they told, and you saw your own life reflected in it.
Right.
And it teaches you something about yourself, about the world. That everybody needs that. Everybody needs and deserves that, you know, to see their experience somehow reflected. So, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm not the only person going through this.
Yeah.
Because I got news. There ain't nobody that's alone.
Right.
You're only alone when you cut yourself off and you can't see it.
Right. Well, that brings me to my other point. That character was so good. You were so convincing in that character that you told me that a lot of times people didn't even know it was
Well, I mean, I still run into it. The story I think I shared with you, because Robin Williams was one of my heroes.
Oh my God, you have to tell that.
I was doing a movie with Robin in Alaska. We were shooting over in Canada, but we were living in Skagway, Alaska.
What was it again? The film?
The Great White.
The Great White.
The Big White.
The Big White. Okay.
And
look it up, people.
It was Robin and Holly Hunter and Woody Harrelson, Tim Blake Nelson, Giovanni Ribisi, Allison Lohman, and me. Me and Tim Nelson were partners in crime. We were these Alaskan hoods, redneck hoods.
Right.
But anyway, Holly's character had Tourette syndrome and the thing. We're talking about it. Me and Robin and Tim. And Robin was, as I said, when Robin is the guy on the talk show 90% of the time.
Oh yeah,
he's always goofing.
ADD,
he's always on.
Going off.
He's always trying to make the crew laugh.
Uh-huh.
But 10% of the time that switches off, and he's the guy. He's himself.
And it's like a normal, just low key sort of average dude. Yeah.
And we were sitting there. We'd been talking about our kids, and talking about that, and somehow it comes around to Tourette's. And Robin says, "Well, sometimes it's a tactile thing. You can't look at. You have to touch something before you can look at it." And I said, "That's Tourette's." He went, "No, it's really it's some forms of mental retardation." He goes, "I did that, and I did this movie, The House of D, with David Duchovny, and I played this mentally, and that's what I did." I said, "Yeah, I know. I did the same thing in Something About Mary." Or no, I said I did the same thing in Mary, and he goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I did the same thing in Mary. That unless I trusted someone, I couldn't look at them. I'd touch them, but I couldn't look at them."
Right.
Something About Mary?
He didn't know.
Yeah. That's you? I said, yeah. That's you! That's you! I said, yeah, that's me. He goes, I called people. I asked, where in the hell did they find this guy that could do it? It's you. And then he starts going, have you seen my baseball? Have you seen my baseball? Frank that beans! Frank that beans! So for the next,
he starts doing you for you.
Yeah. So
that's so Robin Williams.
Well, he breaks into characters,
right.
Like and cut, and he would become somebody else.
Yeah.
Warren starts becoming one of his characters.
Oh.
So for about a week or so, he'd break into Warren. Well, one day he does it, and I just got this big shit-eating grin on my face, and he goes, "What?" I said, "When I was a freshman in high school, I had your first comedy album, and I memorized all of side one. And I have done you, Nanu, hundreds of times over the years.
Wow.
And now I'm watching you do me."
It's so surreal.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a winning moment right there. You look back.
Again, those moments that still, you've been around to be. Sometimes you don't want to go to the airport and get on the plane and go.
No, exactly.
It becomes a job at points.
Yeah.
With every artist, with everybody.
Yeah.
And there are points when I don't want to go and do, I don't want to have to go back up to Vancouver again.
Right.
I want to sit out here with my toys.
Right. Exactly.
But then after you're sitting out here with the toys for a month, you're like,
you get like, I gotta get out of here. Yeah.
So, but it always.
But those moments sometimes make those days worthwhile.
But that's the thing. Every now and then, I still have those pinch me moments of, holy shit, I can't believe I'm really getting to do this.
Yeah. And you've been man, you were telling me too, do you think that is, I think it's a compliment, the fact that people didn't know.
No, it is, and it still is. It's a double-edged sword.
Right.
In that, I saw people I used to audition against for TV guest star stuff.
Yeah.
One in particular whose career skyrocketed because of this small movie that he did that he was great in.
Oh?
It came out the same time that Mary came out. And, when I read in the trades that this guy's getting $5 million to do a movie, and I like the guy. I take nothing away from his skill. He deserves what he's got.
Right. Who is it?
But I'm not going to say.
Okay. Good. I didn't know if it was a.
But
okay.
But so I went through periods of what the.
Yeah. Where's my Where's my piece of the pie?
Because I'm still out auditioning for small guest star things and still doing.
Yeah.
And it was my manager said it a few years later. She goes, "You played it too well." But when Tropic Thunder came out,
I was going to say
that whole bit, man,
about you went full retard.
Yeah, I sent him an email and said, "Well, I guess I figured out why I'm not making $5 million a picture."
Too convincing.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, though, I still think that's the highest compliment when somebody doesn't even know. Because that's what I mean. As a character actor, right? I mean, you don't want people to go like, "Oh, there's Earl again." Yeah. "Oh, there's Earl again." You want people to go like, "Wait, is that Earl?"
Yeah.
Because you're doing so good at transforming.
And that's what I take creative joy out of.
Yeah.
That I get to do those things.
Yeah.
And it's, I see, because my friend John Hawkes is going through now the whole Oscar thing because of the Sessions. And John, he's
another film that Earl is in, by the way.
Small
go to his IMDb page. You'll see there's 18 post-production
that's a great
things.
movie.
You guys working all the time. And thanks to you were able to get me into that, the screening of that, because you were out of town in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And Earl's such a nice guy. He called me up and said, hey, you want some tickets?
I said, you're about to become a big movie star. You need to do movie star things. Go get on that red carpet.
Yeah, which I did, thanks to you. Which, by the way, I'd like to get into that little subject change.
How are we going here?
Well, we're at 57. How much time do you have?
I got time. We can do chapter 2.
Yeah, we can do chapter 2. I'm going to cut this
I got
up
another
anyway.
hour.
Okay, good. Well, let me plug some dates real quick.
Heffron and Reep. Shameless plugs.
That's right. Don't forget to go to heffronandreep.com for all your Heffron and Reep needs. You can click on our Amazon link. There's an Amazon banner if you want to go shopping online on Amazon. Go to our page first. Click on that Amazon link. That will take you to Amazon, and anything that you buy from there on will help us out a little bit. It doesn't cost you any extra money, but it does help us out and promote the show and keep the lights on and all that jazz. You can also check us out on iTunes. Go to our iTunes page. Make sure you rate and review us. That helps us, get better rankings. And, you can come see me on the road as well. November 16 through 18, I'll be in Dayton, Ohio at the Funny Bone there. November 29 through December 2nd, I'll be in Lexington, Kentucky at Comedy Off Broadway. And December 7th, I'm going to be with John Heffron and Eliza Schlesinger. And we're going to be doing a show together in Winter Haven, California at a casino. It's an Indian casino. I'm going to butcher this name. Quechin Casino. Come check us out there December 7th. And, February 7th through 10, I'll be in Tampa, Florida at Side Splitters. And then my dates change and move around a lot, so be sure to check out our tour dates. You can do that at heffronandreep.com. I aspire to be what W. Earl Brown is because, I come from the stand-up world. I don't know much about acting. I know a little bit. I'm a theater major, but I've faked my way through that.
Hey, acting is honesty.
That's true.
And once you learn to fake that...
That's a great quote.
I stole it.
That's awesome. Well, I like that. There's a lot of truth in that. But, so if it weren't for Earl, we've talked about this on the podcast previously, is that I'm in a film that's coming out next summer called Black Sky. It's a big tornado chasing action thriller. It's not a comedy, but my part is comedic. And I wouldn't have even got that part if it wasn't for this guy right here. Because, you were reading the script.
I went into audition for it, and I read the script. And it is the Hemi guy. I mean, it's,
right. That's true. Yeah, I pretty much played it like that.
And because I called you afterwards, and I said, "Have you seen, what was it called? It was called Category 6.
They were calling it Category 6 first. They changed.
But I called and asked him, "Have you seen this script? You should do." And that's the other thing. I bought the first Dodge Hemi that Star Dodge over here in Glendale had. Yeah. I went to buy my new truck, and I didn't even know Dodge was making a Hemi. This is before your ad started airing.
Right.
So I bought the first one that they had in there. Went, hey, wow. They started the Hemi motor again? That silver, that gray one.
Out there.
Yeah. So everywhere I went for 2 years, I went to the California 500 right when the ads were hitting. Uh-huh. I wish I'd had $1 because I could have paid for my tickets 4 times over, sitting there in the parking lot. I couldn't go 10 feet. Hey, man, that thing. So
that's how
I kept being, reintroduced to John Reep all over again.
Well, you were reading the script. You thought like, hey, this is that guy.
Yeah.
And so Earl calls me, and says, hey, I just auditioned for this film that I think there's a part of it you'd be perfect for. And I'm like, okay. This is what your agents are supposed to do. This is why you give them 10%. But Earl, he was acting as a friend, so I got mad at my agents for not, they sort of dropped the ball on that. And that's why I took Earl out for a nice steak dinner the other day at Morton's.
And I've told him when the sequel happens, I get a Dodge Challenger.
No problem.
SRT, baby. Let
me tell you something. If there is a Donk and Revis sequel, you will get a Challenger.
And I want to make sure it's got...
The hell have a Hemi. All right, man. Thank you so much for doing this, folks. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, we're on the road constantly. Check us out, heffronandreep.com. And thanks again. Bicycle!
Go to heffronandreep.com for tour dates and great links. Hey, did you get that? It's heffronandreep.com. Go there now.